The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, this is Tom Lane, DM2 Software's Vice President of Marketing. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's DM2 and DTN Supply Chain Automation Partner Webinar. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Because of the number of attendees we have on today's webinar, everyone's phones will stay on mute. If you have any questions during the webinar, please enter them into the question window that you see in the lower right of your screen. We'll try to get to everyone's questions at the end of the webinar. If for some reason we're unable to get to your question, we'll follow up with you after the webinar is over. Today's webinar is being recorded. As soon as the recording is available, we'll post it on our YouTube channel as well as our website. We're also going to put a PDF copy of today's PowerPoint presentation up there as well for you to download. When that's available, I'll send out a message to everyone to let them know that they're ready to view and download. Now, joining me today is Tim Bauer. Tim is a product manager at DTN Energy, and he handles their fuel suite. Also joining me for the Q&A session is our very own Patty Hendrickson. She's very experienced with the DTN interfaces from the professional service side. She's implemented the whole suite of DTN interfaces that we have to offer. So she's very knowledgeable. She's there to help me if we get in a jam and somebody asks a question that goes deep. And then I'm going to get things going here just to talk about what we have done with DTN over the years. Tim and I were talking about this before we started. DM2 got its start in '89. DTN was in business in the mid-'80s. I think around, we're in the early '90s when we first started really getting into the full ERP accounting business. That's when we partnered up with DTN. And our very first interface was the one that we call supplier price. A lot of people call it supplier cost, where you're importing the actual pricing and cost of the actual products. So that's the oldest and probably our biggest selling. But you can see since then we've worked to automate several processes. And what we do is we work with DTN. They have certain services that Tim is going to talk about that you can subscribe to that will allow you to package up all this information and then send it over to your DM2 Petroleum Insights accounting ERP system and eliminate the need to manually enter these, which is obviously going to reduce your labor costs, improve accuracy, and just help streamline your whole processes. So on that note, I am going to turn it over to Tim, and we're going to talk about automating the bill of lading process. All right, Tim, you can advance it from here.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Yes, we're going to talk about a number of the DTN products today and how they interface with DM2. We'll get started with our bill of lading automation. That product is known as Fuel Admin. Let me advance to the next slide here. And I'm clicking it, Tom, but it's not advancing, so if you want to hit that, go for it.
Sure. Actually, try that one more time real quick. I think it reset when we were playing around earlier. No go?
Not.
All right.
Yet.
Well, actually, I think you got a hold of it there. We went twice. There you go.
So Fuel Admin is the name of our product that brings in electronic bills of lading. So we have a number of different sources for those bills of lading. One is our DTN tabs product. And there's actually at the terminal that many suppliers use. We have a good amount of coverage there. Also, some suppliers send PetroX from the terminal, or maybe put the BOLs out on their websites, or send them through our messaging service. So there's a number of different ways BOLs are electronically transmitted, and we're going to have access to a greater amount of electronic BOLs than any other single source you could have. What we do with those bills of lading is aggregate them, normalize the data, and we give you a web browser to view the bills of lading, and then we're going to feed your DM2 software with an automation file as well. So when you first log into Fuel Admin to view your bills of lading, you'll land on the mailbox. This is a screenshot of what that mailbox would look like. You've got different search criteria to go through your bills of lading. We're going to hold those for 60 days in here, and actually we just recently changed that to 180 days. So you've got 6 months of BOLs to be able to view, so you can search by date, and then you can search by pretty much any field on the BOL. So you can see in that search criteria box the number of different fields that you can search by. Once you do that, down below, it's going to show you all of the bills of lading that you searched for, list them, and each one of those columns is a filter box. So if you wanted to search for today and then filter down to a single supplier, terminal, carrier, you could do that. There's also a type ahead that the filter box above the search or above the columns is a quick type ahead, so you can start typing in any information on the BOL and it'll pull that to the top. What you can view there when you click on any of those BOLs is what we call our Smart Text BOL. It's just a version, a PDF of every BOL that you have. The advantage here is it's going to be in the same format regardless of supplier. So if you're used to dealing with paper BOLs, you know that those come from the terminals. You might get them, directly from a driver or via some kind of driver upload interface, or in the mail. I mean, there's a number of ways you can get paper BOLs. The bad news on those paper ones is they all look different. So with the Smart Text BOL, we're going to lay it out the exact same way, regardless of supplier, regardless of source, and give you a nice human-readable format. What we also provide you with there is our normalization. So one of the key benefits of getting your electronic bill of lading through DTN is our normalization. We're going to show you the original description. So if you look down at the products, we're going to show you the original description of the PIDEX that was entered. That's what you're going to get most of the time on a bill of lading is a PIDEX. What we do is we normalize all of that. So every PIDEX we give a DTN name. And as you know, not all suppliers go by the PIDEX. It's supposed to be standard, and so we manage all of that for you. We have our RACS group normalizes all that data, and they've got tables that are tens of thousands of fields or rows big that handles all of that for you. And so we normalize every product down to a DTN product name, and then the next field is the export product. So not only do we normalize all that data down to DTN standard names, we give you the ability to cross-reference that into whatever you want for your DM2 import. So this, like I mentioned, is going to look the same regardless of supplier. What might be different is the fields that are filled in. So depending if that's a tabs or a PetroX or a messaging BOL, the possibility exists that different fields will be on that BOL depending on the source. This next page is the cross-reference for that. So I mentioned how you can put in your custom cross-references for products, terminals, and suppliers, as well as carriers. So there's 4 fields that you can cross-reference on that bill of lading. And so we give you an interface to show you, what our DTN names are, and then you can put in your DM2 custom codes there in that interface, as well as override rules. So if there's an instance where maybe for a certain supplier or at a certain terminal, you might have a different code for a product or a different code for a terminal, you can set up override rules to go ahead and do that. The other key usage of an override rule is maybe on your supplier name. So the document supplier of the BOL might be one supplier, but maybe if you're buying from someone who's reselling, then you might need to change that supplier, or even change it to like a branded or an unbranded supplier name. You can do that by the consignee number that's used. on the BOL. So you can set up these rules in advance to do that and get that down to the exact document supplier that you need so that you can match it up to your prices via DM2. The next screen, the corrections tab. So this is something new in Fuel Admin. Whenever tab sends in a BOL, and maybe there's a mistake on that BOL, maybe the gallons were wrong, maybe the terminal was wrong, or the product, maybe the wrong consignee number was input. Whenever that happens via tabs, they send a corrective BOL. It's the exact same BOL number, but it comes through again with the first one having negative gallons to negate the initial BOL, and then a third with the corrective data. So really, you're getting 3 copies of the same BOL. Well, before we had this corrections queue, we have a duplication process that would eliminate those as duplicates, similar to what DM2 has, because we've got so many different sources for BOLs. We get every BOL or most BOLs more than once. So our duplication process was kicking those out, and that was obviously no good. So we created this corrections queue. What this does is it shows you any tabs corrections that have come in, so that you can come in here and you can view the BOL, you can see what's changed about it, and then you can either choose to click process and send that through to the automation file for DM2 to import, or you can just open it up, see what's changed, and then manually enter that into your DM2 once that's imported, and you can open it up and do that. So either way, depending on your workflow, we give you the ability to kind of do either one. So that's a new feature to Fuel Admin just this year. Sorry, I'm advancing slides here on Tom's screen and trying to get it to go.
It's not moving, Tim?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I just moved that, so let me know when you need me to move them.
Okay, thank you. The next thing we're going to look at is also a recent enhancement this year. It's actually our enhanced BOL module. What this does, I mentioned earlier that the data that comes in on each BOL can change. Quite possible that it's not consistently, you're getting the same fields. Whether you get maybe like ship to information can depend on what terminal the BOL is coming from and what version of PIDEX they're using. So what we've done here for different customers who maybe need to have a certain field is we set required fields. So obviously things like gallons, products, carrier, those are all required, but other fields that are maybe not as common, we let you set as required, and then if that field is not filled out on the BOL, it actually goes to a queue where you can add that field before actually processing it to your automation file for DM2. So this is the setup screen where you would require certain fields that you have, and maybe you don't have any, but this is where you set up those required fields. This will actually hold the BOL if that BOL does not have your required field. So the first step is to set your required field if you need to. Oh. And click to the next one there, Tom. Okay. With the ship to information, so on the required fields, 3 of them were ship to name, address, and state. So this is probably the most common use case for this, for the enhanced BOL module. And what this allows you to do is we're going to show you all of your suppliers that you're receiving via Fuel Admin, and we're going to list all of the consignees that have come through, And what you can do there is assign a ship-to name, address, and state, or any of those fields. So you don't have to do all three. If maybe you just need the state for tax purposes, you can just enter in the state. But what it allows you to do is basically name each consignee used. Because in most cases, your supplier will give you a different listing number depending on where you're going to take that load of fuel. So when you have those instances, you can enter this in. That way, even if the BOL doesn't come in with the ship-to information on it, it will actually append it to each BOL based on that consignee. And before it processes through to your DM2, you can actually just append that information right on top. So this is useful for those suppliers that do. Maybe not all will give you different consignees for every ship-to location you have, but and maybe at the very least they are state specific, so you can then enter in your state. So again, this is a newer module that we allow you to have, and this is part of the fuel admin product. It's not any kind of billable add-on. Next slide. Okay, so this is the enhanced BOLs and waiting. So if you chose on the setup screen to require purchase order, ship-to name, vehicle number, driver number, any of those fields, and it doesn't come through on the BOL, what you can do here, it'll come to this queue. This is where you actually enter in that, fill in that information, and then hit process. So this is your kind of your working queue. And this is really only relevant for order number, driver number, or any ship-to that you couldn't pre-fill. If you used that ship-to cross-reference and assigned a state or a ship-to name to each consignee, it won't actually need to come in here because it'll automatically append that and process the BOL. So this is only for those that need some kind of data before processing.
All right, so after DTN's fuel admin program has gone through that process and cleaned up all the data and packaged it up for export, we're going to turn around and import that into our system. And you're going to require, we have an optional DTN bill of lading interface that's part of the suite of interfaces that we're talking about today. And then, of course, you're going to be required to have our bill of lading module in your system. I think that's a pretty obvious conclusion there. So once you get the information in from DTN, we're going to take that and automatically populate these 8 key fields that you see on the slide there. And all that's left for you to do is to enter in where the product is being delivered. So you can see where it would streamline, take a lot of manual entry away. And obviously all the pre-work that DTN is doing, as Tim described, is going to ensure that you've got some pretty clean data to work with in the first place. So it should make that process go pretty smoothly. And what I did also include here is just the basic instructions on the setup. And you can see that it's under our Petrolink module. If you open up Petrolink, you're going to see a DTN interface drop down. And then if you open that up, it's going to allow you to view all the different DTN interfaces, all the different submenus that are required to set up. And the setup really involved in this is going through and doing some cross-referencing for each of these 8 fields there. So when our consultants work with you, they'll go through and install the bill of lading interface and then configure it and do the setup work with you and make sure you understand how that all works. So then the next thing we want to talk about is kind of the next thing, the progression here would be our supplier invoice automation. And this is really, okay, you've got the product, you've got the bill of lading, and now this one addresses paying for your fuel from your suppliers or to your suppliers. So Tim's going to take over again and talk about what DTN does on their side to get the export file ready to import into your DM2 system.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So yeah, the next step is supplier invoices, and this is something that we also handle through the Fuel Admin product. It is brand new to the Fuel Admin product, just released this month, is the ability to, you've always been able to get your invoices through us and be able to get those translated and automated to your DM2 for their pickup. But what you can do now through Fuel Admin is you've got the search criteria on the invoices, just like with the BOLs. As you can see, it looks a lot the same. You're going to have 6 months worth of storage, easy way to search and find your invoices. You're going to get the smart text invoice again, so the PDF copy of each invoice, nice human readable format. And then on top of that, you can use the same cross-references that you used for your bills of lading. You can use those same cross-references I showed you earlier, where you can cross-reference suppliers, terminals, products, and carriers. And then the really neat thing is if you've got Fuel Admin BOLs and also Fuel Admin invoices, we provide you with the dashboard that gives you some more insight into the differences between those documents. So each invoice has a BOL number on it. If you receive that BOL through us, we can do some comparisons. So what we show you on this dashboard, and this is something that you'd only have if you have both invoices and BOLs through Fuel Admin, is we'll show you unmatched invoices. So that first section is, you got an invoice in, it's got a BOL number on it, but that BOL never came in. We're going to show you that, basically just telling you, hey, there's something happened, you missed a BOL, that there's some kind of issue, just alerts you to that fact. We also put a setting on top of this where you can choose any suppliers you don't want to show, because maybe the supplier shows up in here because, well, you don't get BOLs from them, so you don't want to see that every single time. So you can define which suppliers you wish to see in this whole page. The second area there is product discrepancies. So what this is going to do is look at the BOL you receive via Fuel Admin and the invoice you receive via Fuel Admin. It's going to compare the list of products on those two documents, and if there are any differences, it will alert you to that. So as you can see, maybe that top row, the BOL had conventional 87 unleaded with 10% ethanol, low RVP, whereas the invoice just had 87 unleaded, 10% ethanol. So slight difference in product will show you that, so that you can be alerted to if it's a minor change, or maybe you're invoiced for something completely different. Obviously, you're going to need to know that. So it just gives you a heads up on our side still that you've got some issues there. And then the third section, gallon discrepancies, is really the same thing, only instead of comparing the products, it's going to compare total gallons on your BOL to total gallons on your invoice and make sure those are the same. And then if both net and gross are different, it will show up as a discrepancy in there. So with those, whether it's an unmatched invoice, a product discrepancy, or a gallon discrepancy, you can view them and then clear them from your view. The dashboard does not hold any documents. They still process. It's just for just to alert you to any kind of issues, just informational only. So this is what your unmatched invoice, when you click on it, it just gives you a little bit more detail on the invoice, the invoice number, the supplier, and then it gives you kind of your export information on there, how you cross-referenced it. The product discrepancy, when you click on view on one of those rows, it's going to show you the invoice and the BOL, the products, and then it'll highlight the difference between them. And then same thing for the gallon discrepancy. With all of those, you can click the little next arrow at the top. So if you've got a list you're working through, you can just next through them. You don't have to close it and then go click on the next row down. Advance the slide here. Okay, so
so after DTN has done all their processing with the invoices, with our DTN supplier invoice interface. We're going to take that information, we're going to import those invoices, and we're going to automatically match them up to the appropriate bill of lading. Then one of the things that we can do is you can build in an allowable tolerance that'll automatically clear bill of ladings and set up the invoice for payment if they fall within allowable tolerance. If they're outside of that tolerance, we'll just generate a report to let you go back and look at those specific ones so you can research them and make sure everything's okay there. And again, a little bit of a view into the setup. You know, again, this is under Petrolink, under our DTN interfaces, and this would be DTN supplier maintenance. You'd go through that and basically associate the, you know, the AP invoice import and set up everything to match the download to the appropriate AR and accounts payable, or excuse me, the accounts payable there. So that's really as simple as it is. It takes all the legwork out of having to key all that information in, and that's really kind of the beauty of all these different interfaces. And then we're going to talk about next, as I mentioned earlier, this was the first interface that we developed with DTN back in the early 90s, and it's our most popular by far. About 60% of our customers actually use this interface right now. And it's obvious why, with the way the volatility is in the market and the number of price changes that you have to constantly keep up with, this really pays for itself quickly. It takes a lot of the legwork out by you know, taking that pricing and automatically entering it into your system. Before I go any further with that, I'll hand it back over to Tim, and he can talk to you about what DTN does to get all that ready to export over into our system.
Okay, so for prices from DTN, what you're looking at now is our DTN Fuel Buyer product. This is a different product than the Fuel Admin we were looking at before for BOLs and now invoices. Fuel Buyer, you're likely familiar with. It is one of our first products as well. Basically, we take all of your supplier pricing that's coming in, aggregate all of that, and then give you dashboards and tools to allow you to view those prices side by side and the kind of views you want to use by markets. You can view our spot information in there. You can view you know, any of our DTN fast rack information as well, averages, highs, lows, that kind of information. It's a pretty intricate tool with a lot going on. We show you all your price alerts, any prices that have come in. We show you what time they came in and supplier they came in from. We have our own spot ticker. So similar to other competitors, we have a team, a market wire team that calls around, and that's what they do all day, is gather spot information. So we give you that as well. So pretty much any information you need to make pricing decisions, we're going to show you there, you know, side by side. We've got tools within Fuel Buyer to allow you to, maybe your supplier is not sending you your contract price, but it is, you know, like a plus type deal. And so in that example, you can actually set up your own price formulas through Fuel Buyer to actually calculate that yourself and send it out to DM2 with all the other pricing that you're actually receiving from your suppliers. So you can see all the prices you do receive, you can calculate prices you don't, you can even adjust prices you receive. So maybe if you have a discount off a rack price or something like that, you can go in and set up those discounts so that even if your supplier doesn't send you a discounted price, you can calculate it. And you've got options even to choose to view it one way and export it another. So if you want to view the discount but not export it, or vice versa, you can do all of that. So it's really pliable, and it's a product with a lot of bells and whistles, but at a high level, that's essentially what you're doing in order to gather all your pricing you're receiving from your suppliers, view it all in our dashboard, and then obviously we've got the automation file that comes out of that that's going to import into your DM2. And slide. So this next slide is showing you the price exports. So that's where you actually go in. You set up to automate exports to DM2. You can also run manual exports if you need to. There's a service that exports all of your prices you receive out to an FTP where they pick it up. But like I mentioned, you can also go in and create an export file manually as well. And we've got formats to match anyone, and obviously DM2 has a specific format. Advanced price formula screen. So this is what I was talking about when you want to create your contract pricing. It's real simple to use. You go in and you select your base. In this example, it's a Platts ULSD spot, and you can add with whatever the adjustment is. You've got your current day or previous day, so real standard stuff there. And then you can choose how you want it to export and what time you want it to export, and the terminals that particular price is good at. So it's all done there in one screen. That's pretty easy to set up and use.
Great, thanks, Tim. So, as I said, after DTN does, as I said with the other interfaces, after DTN's done their thing, in this case with the fuel buyer program, we're going to take that export file and we're going to directly import it into our system and populate your price tables, or give you the option of bringing that into a spreadsheet to do any kind of manual adjustments or make any kind of changes before you bring it into your pricing table. And we can set this up to do it every 15 minutes. So near real time, you're going to be able to go out there, and we're communicating with an FTP site, so our system is calling out every 15 minutes if you set it up that way to pull out that information and update your tables or populate those spreadsheets for you to review. And again, you're going to find this under Petrolink, under the DTN interfaces, and to set it up, it's pretty easy. It's supplier maintenance and item maintenance, and you're basically just going to go in there and set up the frequency of the import and associate the file to that particular program there. So it's pretty much that easy. You can see a couple of the screens that show that in action there. The next thing we're going to talk about is these are two separate DTN supply chain automation interfaces that we have to offer. One is dealer credit card, and the other one is supplier EFT automation. The reason I lumped them together in this transition slide here is Tim is going to talk about DTN messaging, and that same service is required to work with either or of these interfaces there. So I'm going to hand it back over to Tim, and he can talk about what DTN does to get that ready to import into our system.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So yeah, the DTN messaging is the service that you would be receiving on our side. Like it says here, we're the industry leader in document translation and delivery. We actually, at DTN, we process 4.5 million messages per month. We've got 188 different active messaging suppliers and marketers. So suppliers send us their prices, invoices, credit cards, loyalty rewards. Literally 110 different document types are being sent today of messages sent through our messaging service from suppliers and wholesalers alike. So what we offer is basically you send in your file, or the supplier sends in their file. Maybe it's a credit card file or an EFT file or an invoice file or anything like that. We take that one file, we parse it out, and basically deliver it to all of their customers in the format that you need. So when you subscribe to that service for maybe invoices or credit cards or EFTs, what we do is we translate those files into your DM2 preferred output map, which obviously is pre-mapped because we work with all all DM2 customers. And so we map that for you, and you subscribe to a Data Plus service that allows you to get those documents in that format and sent to an FTP for DM2 to pull in. So that's the messaging on our side. In addition to the automation file that we're sending to DM2, we've also got products like Data Connect that you can just log in and view all your inbound documents in one centralized location, so you can see all your prices, invoices, credit cards, all of those. You can basically just see the text files of those to have a website to log in and view those just for keeping. For prices, BOLs, and now invoices, we've got the normalization that we do from the supplier. So when I say normalization, I just mean terminal products, supplier names are all normalized into DTN names and cross-referencing. Like we mentioned, and that would be through Fuel Admin for your BOLs and invoices, and then through Fuel Buyer for your pricing information. But we do offer translation services for all inbound file types, and along with the automated FTP delivery for DM2 to pick up.
Okay, so as I said, that particular messaging services that Tim just described facilitates the ability to bring in your dealer credit cards through our DTN dealer credit card interface. And what that does is it simply brings in any of the dealers that you work with, the credit cards information, and it's going to post it to their accounts. You're going to find that in the same place. You're going to find all the other DTN interfaces. And really the setup involving that is, each of these each of these files from DTN is going to have a supplier account number that then needs to be associated with the AR number that you have assigned to that particular dealer. And then once you pull this in, as Tim mentioned, through the FTP site, we're going to process that, and then a cash receipts batch is going to be created there. And the other interface that the messaging service supports there is what we call DTN Supplier EFT interface. And this allows you to basically, work with your suppliers to automatically, match up as we talked about before, all the invoicing, and then be able to create an EFT transfer and make an automatic payment. So the end result is it sets up the payment entry batch will be created off of that. So it automates a lot of that, and as Tim pointed out, they do a lot of work up front through the DTN service to clean up the data. So you should have pretty clean data to work with, and have very few errors once you have these imports made. The next, last but certainly not least thing that we want to talk about is our newest interface, and we developed this probably a little less than a year ago, and it was in response to a lot of petroleum marketers. A lot of our customers are working with national accounts that require their invoices to be delivered basically in EDI format, meeting very specific requirements. And that is a service that DTN facilitates and basically works with a lot of these national accounts to begin with. So they've got the familiarity and understand what they're looking for there. So on that note, I'm going to hand it back to Tim. He's going to tell you what they do to get this ready for our system to work with.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So yeah, everything we've talked about so far has been inbound. So inbound prices, inbound BOLs, invoices, etc. What we're talking about now is more your outbound documents. So what we allow you to do is, just like your suppliers send you an invoice, you can send your invoices via our same messaging service out to your customers. And so with this DM2 interface, they basically created an export that works with our messaging service that can be placed out on our FTP. And with a fairly quick implementation, we take your invoice file that you're exporting, we parse out the data and deliver them to your customers, and then they can also get them in their format that they need. So it's really similar to the same way you're receiving invoices, only now you're on the other side of it there. So we have a number of wholesalers these days that basically will only do business with you if you send them your prices via DTN or invoice them via DTN. And so this gives you that ability to actually send the outbound. So you would subscribe to our DTN messaging service, and that allows you to send out your prices or invoices or any other document type. But the one we're focusing here on is really invoices. So the other good thing about this is you send your invoices. They're created in DM2. They're dropped on our FTP. We deliver them to your customers, and then we basically act as your call center as well, because if one of your customers loses an invoice or has trouble with their import and it errors out and they lose the file, they call us for the resend and not you. So you don't have to worry about resending that data, whether it's a price or an invoice. We can send it back out for you. So that's another real value add that we do there as well. I'll let Tom talk about the outbound DM2 service.
Okay, so again, this requires an interface that we've developed in conjunction with DTN. We call it our DTN Invoice Export interface, and as I said, it's for the EDI delivery, and as Tim covered that. So after the exports are completed, we're going to provide an audit log so you can easily see which ones have been sent and which ones have been successfully exported. Now, this is a little bit different because this kind of the tables are turned. We're now sending information out versus sending having only information imported in. So setup's a little bit different. We're going to go in and there's setup instructions. So you're going to have to enable a connection through our interface to the DTN site. There's a site code involved that's going to be required. But once that information is set up, it's going to be tied into the AR customer maintenance. So it's going to basically tell the system through that customer's AR customer maintenance setup if they're a candidate to have their invoices exported to DTN. And then once that's done, there's login to allow you to deliver that information to the proper site or proper account within the DTN site there. And again, it's fairly new. We've got a couple of customers that have been using it for quite some time, and they're using it to, I believe, support national accounts like Walmart and some other large customers like that demand this kind of formatting. Now that really that is the end of the presentation, and this is just really to summarize. So again, we're kind of back to that little diagram that we showed you up front that talks about all the different interfaces that we have available and all the different ways we can work in conjunction with DTN. And as I said, you saw the consistent theme here is DTN does a lot of work up front to clean up the data, then hands it off to us, which eliminates the need to manually enter it. Since they've done a lot of work to clean up the data, it's going to have a lot of you're going to reduce errors. And the bottom line is it's all about cash flow. The faster you can make all this happen, the faster you can get product out in the hands of your customers, invoice them, and collect. So all of these interfaces are really designed with all those benefits in mind. Now, on that note, we've kind of concluded the presentation. We've got a few minutes left for questions. I haven't seen any questions entered so far. I know it's a lot of material. We threw it at you pretty quickly, but as I said, we are recording this. As soon as this webinar is over, I'll start working on getting the recording up on our YouTube channel and our website. We'll also put a copy of these presentation slides up there so you can review them at your leisure and share them with your coworkers. Still don't have any questions yet. Like I said, I know it's a lot of material to digest. If you do have any questions after we hang up here, you can always contact us at sales@dm2.com, and we'll make sure we follow up with you. And you know, if it requires any help from DTN, we'll certainly reach out to Tim and make sure that we get you the answers that you need. Okay, we've got one question just came in here. So let me see. Okay, it says, what is the lead time for BOLs once we have pickup at the rack? So I guess the question to you, Tim, is, you know, once the rack is, how fast does this all happen?
Sure, that's a great question. Something I failed to mention is it really depends on the source. So like I mentioned, we gather BOLs from different sources. We've got tabs, PetroX, we scrape supplier websites, and some suppliers just send them directly via our messaging service. So it really depends on the source. Our greatest source is our DTN tabs product. We have that at, you know, I think 80+% of the terminals in the country are tabs capable. And so that really is our #1 source. And the good news with tabs is that it is in real time. So the lifting occurs, the BOL is sent from the terminal automation system to tabs. From there, field admin picks it out, and all of that takes about 3 to 5 minutes. So generally, what we say with tabs is before the driver has left the terminal, that BOL is actually in your field admin account. You can be sitting there looking at the PDF in your account. And we do have customers that use it that way. So we've got customers that watch their BOLs and have been able to actually reroute drivers when they maybe pick up a wrong product or, you know, use the wrong account number or whatever that might be. So it's a huge benefit to be able to see that before, maybe to catch a mistake before actual delivery, because without an electronic bill of lading, you're not going to have that kind of insight until well after it's delivered.
Okay, thank you, Tim. We did have another question came in while you're answering that. This is from Greg Sparrow. He's saying, we currently have fuel admin, but only a handful of suppliers are transmitting. How can we add more?
Sure. What you can do is contact our support to see if more are available. The thing with electronic bills of lading is we receive, you know, more sources every week, right? So suppliers are implementing tabs in new terminals. New suppliers are purchasing and coming on board. So we're always getting more sources. So it never hurts if you do have fuel admin, you're a current customer. It never hurts to follow up with support and you know, mention suppliers that you're not currently getting and see if they're available. The best way to do that, the email is fueladminhelp@dtn.com. And what you can do, the best thing for you to do really is send an example of a supplier terminal that you have not received. It's real quick and easy for us to put in that BOL number and date, see if it's in our system. And then if it is, we can look at how we might be able to get that out. So that's definitely the best way to go about it. And yeah, it never hurts to review that, you know, every couple of months or so.
All right, thanks, Tim. That looks like all the questions we have for now. I know we've gone a few minutes over the 45 minutes we had allotted, but I think you know, those questions were certainly good ones to answer there. So I wanted to thank everybody for attending. I just want to remind everybody one more time that we've been recording this. We're going to post the recording and our presentation slides up on our website. You'll have the recording available on our YouTube channel as well. And as I said, if you can think of any more questions, feel free to contact us at sales@dm2.com. Tim had mentioned where you can contact their support group about trying to get some more BOLs added to the list there. And I'd like to thank Tim and thank you, Patty, for being there for moral support. And I would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. And as I said, I'll send a message out shortly to let you know when the recording's ready. And on that note, I'll let everybody get on with their day. Thanks again.